Okay, welcome everybody for to our first meeting for the youth wing of the Scottish Family Party. Not everybody participating today is part of the Scottish Family Party, but that's absolutely fine. We're gonna have a little conversation today about the topic of love, relationship, and marriage. And I have a couple of questions prepared for all of you, and I'm interested in your views. So let us dive right in. I hope you all have a piece of paper so you can write down your answers. Our first topic is love. How do you define love? And when I say love, I mean love between two partners. So not the love between parents and their children or friends, specifically the love in between a couple. How do you define that for you?
Somebody else just came to join us. He can tell you a lot about love. Yeah?
It's a little bit like in a school exam. Okay, I'm gonna start. I will start with Liam. How would you define love?
I would say love is an action. It's to be shown. So anyone can say that they love someone, but can they prove it?
Okay.
So you take time and effort with a person rather than just words, which could be empty.
Mm.
Although words are also useful.
Thank you. Marta.
Yes. I would define love as trust, comprehension, support, and telling the ugly truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think especially the last part is very important, because sometimes we don't want to hurt somebody, but on the other side, when we love, we need just to say things how they are, even if sometimes they hurt, but we do that for the good of the other person. So the communication between two people is very important, not only when there are good things to say, but also the bad one. But that's why the trust is very important about as well.
Okay. Dominic.
I liked what Liam said, actually, because I heard that, I think it's in some Ignatian meditation, if you've heard of anything to do with that. It says something along the lines of the fact that love is shown more in deeds rather than words.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Naomi?
Where your plans and your heart is in the same place as the other person, and you're ready to do and stick through anything with them.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Colm? Oh, he's writing. We didn't want a thesis.
Expecting a theological response here, like something.
Can you unmute yourself? Unless love is silence.
It's quite profound, actually. Thanks for sharing, Philip.
We can't hear you?
Oh, we can't hear you.
Is that any better?
That is much better.
There we go. There we are. Okay. So in this sense, I'd say love is it's an attraction between two people that goes beyond just being friends. You know, it has the emotional element that you get with friendship, but it also has a physical element as well. And it's something that you see properly when it's lived out by the actions of two people. It's not just, you know, they can say nice things as well, but that's backed up by how they live with each other at the same time.
Okay.
That's the brief version.
Thank you. Masedi?
Well, I believe everybody has literally said everything that I have written down, but I believe love is where words meet actions. To say, when you say you love somebody, you need to show it within your actions. You know, you need to, one, stay true to your word. True, always be honest, because honesty is what would distinguish whether you really like that person or do you really love person. Because sometimes there's darkness and ugliness in love that requires you to always be open and honest about everything up front.
Yep. Thank you. Francesca?
I said a deep bond between two people based on trust and reliance. So you need to be able to rely on someone, but trust is probably the most important one.
Okay. And we've got a new guest. Hi there, new guest. Who are you? Can you unmute yourself? Torquil. Torquil? Can you unmute yourself?
Hello.
Hi there. Who are you?
My name's Cameron Mackenzie. I'm actually using my son's phone. So my son is Torquil.
Okay. Hi, Cameron. Just a little introduction. So we're talking about the topics love, relationship, and marriage. And I just asked the question how we define love, like personally, the love between like in a couple, and everybody already like stated their definition. You can think about yours for a second. I'm just gonna tell mine. And it's been covered by what most of you have already said. I would say it's a unique feeling of trust and commitment. And I think for me, it's important that you actually want to stay together. I think the future aspect is quite important to me now. It wasn't like that in the past necessarily, but I think that became stronger and stronger for me now. So, Cameron, what's your definition of love? Cameron? Are you there? Okay, we're just going to go into the conversation bit then. So I'm just going to read out what you guys said. So we had love is an action that should be shown, that should be expressed, not just talked about. Love is support, telling each other the ugly truth, comprehension, trust, again, deeds rather than words, something where your plans and your heart are in the same place, attraction beyond friendship, so physical attraction plus the trust of friendship, honesty, openness, and a deep bond where you can rely on each other. Did that cover pretty much everything, or does somebody not feel completely covered? I think that was it. Okay, so was there something that you heard from another person that took you by surprise, or something that you weren't thinking about when you were thinking about your definition, and why? And you can just raise your hands, or I can force you to say something. Okay, I'm going to force you. Liam, was there something that was covered by somebody else where you're like, oh, I didn't think about that?
Yeah, I would say what Francesca said was quite good. I'd say it gave me a slightly different aspect to where I would usually come from myself. So I'd say that was quite useful.
Okay. Maseri, was there something that surprised you?
Not necessarily that it surprised me, but I don't often think about it that way, that it needs to have longevity to it, and as in there needs to be a future to it. I always believe that sometimes love grows, sometimes love dies over time. And I never really thought of how sometimes people ought to commit to actually make it work or to actually think about the future. I always thought it either grows or it either dies. And I know like you need to go into it thinking, what is my intention of it? But to me, I never really thought of how the longevity is quite important in terms of love.
Okay.
Because you can love somebody and still be okay to let them go. You know, there are people who you want to love and you allow into your life, but it's one-sided. It's a one-sided kind of a love. Therefore, sometimes you can want to love them from a distance, which is still love, but it's just not reciprocated in a way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Colm? You're mute.
Well, I think most of us would have come up with something slightly different, but also very similar. In that, I think we've all mentioned different aspects of what we would all agree are fundamental to love and to a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We might have picked out what's more important for us, but I think it amounts to part of the same thing.
Okay. Marta?
I think I can just say that I agree with everything I've heard from you guys. Yeah.
Okay. Nimi and Francesca?
I agreed with Mercedes's thing. I can't remember what it was, but I remember at the time being like, yeah, that.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica's version.
Yeah. No, continue. Sorry.
I agreed with Liam because he said actions, and I always just think love is feelings, and sometimes you need to show physical actions in order to communicate those feelings. So,
yeah, I was surprised, even though actually it's part of my definition as well. But I was surprised by the ugly truth. I wasn't surprised because I believe in that, but it was surprising to hear it, and the ugly truth is quite a strong statement. How do you guys feel about that? How do you feel about the ugly truth? How do you deal with that in a relationship? Because it also hurts. I think the closer a person is to us, the more they can actually hurt us. When a friend says something, it's much easier to accept it often than when your partner says it. Would you agree with that? Or what are your thoughts?
Is it on mute? Yeah.
it is. And you need to be open to be able to cope with judgment, because people will always judge you. But if you can't take the criticism and, act very defensive, then that can also stop them from telling you the truth about things if you can't react well to it.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, Colm, I saw your hand up. I think I want to focus on that topic in one of our future sessions, because I do think it's a very big topic. So I'm going to write that down. I think criticism in a relationship is a huge, it can be a huge issue, but I think it's also what makes a relationship most special. Colm, what did you want to say?
I just want to say that criticizing someone you're in a relationship can be a very difficult and in a certain way dangerous thing to do, because it's one thing to criticize your friends. I mean, at least culturally in Scotland, the main way that you show affection to your friends is you constantly criticize them and put them down and insult them in every way you can imagine. Whereas there seems to be an unwritten rule in sorry. Yeah, sorry. Oh, thank you. Sorry. The joys of having a family of 7. You're constantly interrupted. Yeah, but I was saying, like, there's almost an unwritten rule, especially in the early stages of a relationship, that you're almost not allowed to criticize someone, or you have to be very careful in how you do it, which is then, like, dangerous for 2 reasons. Firstly, it means that you're building on the sand. Essentially, you're not allowed to develop the habit of having difficult conversations with whoever it is you're in a relationship with. But it also means that, once you do start criticizing someone, it would be very difficult to for them to not take it personally, because in a relationship it almost always is personal, and to react to that in a manner that doesn't cause problems for everyone involved.
Yeah.
But I think that this is why trust is so important in a relationship, because if even if you say something tough or rough to your partner, but you know that you love each other, and these words comes out from
It's maybe going to depend how you say it then, rather than what you say at times.
yes, that's true. But as long the other person knows that you're not saying something to
Yeah,
hurt him,
yeah,
but because
To
I don't know,
help.
for example,
Yeah.
your partner can be denial with something, so you're
Yeah.
trying to explain him, like, look, what's happening is wrong, and as long your partner knows that you care about him, and your words, even if they are sometimes difficult to hear, they are used to help you.
But
Yeah.
but we speak different languages, and even if we're a couple, I think we still speak different languages. So we have to find a common language.
Mhm.
We understand what works well for our partner. Sometimes some people, for example, need words of affection. Other people need a hug to deal with the situation. And I think it takes quite a bit of time to figure out what works for your partner, so that you don't hurt her or him in the process. We're gonna return to that in our next meeting. I would like to move on to the next question. And the next question goes into an area that only one of you mentioned. It's the physicality about a relationship, which obviously is an important part, because that makes the huge difference between friendship and a relationship in many ways. So the question is, do people nowadays, so this is not about you, do people understand the difference between lust and love? That's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question, how do you want them to be connected in a relationship?
I don't understand the word lust.
Lust, sexual attraction.
Okay.
I think we live in a world.
First, write it down, and then I'm going to ask you guys. It's very strict here.
I feel like back in school.
Yeah.
Would you mind to repeat the question again?
Sure. So the first part is, do people nowadays understand the difference between lust and love? And how do you want lust and love to be connected in your relationship? Oh my God, I feel like an online teacher. It's awesome.
I think it's really quite difficult with those terms you're using, possibly.
That's okay.
Just when I think of lust, I think of like what was traditionally known as one of the 7 deadly
Sins.
sins.
Mhm.
So really depend on what you're intending for the word and your use of the word.
No,
But-
your understanding is important for the answer, I would say. So that's okay.
Right. I think what you're intending is what you've said, sexual desire then.
Can be the sinful aspect and can be the holy aspect. I think because I think there are two versions of it, and I think that
Well, you could say passion then, sexual passion as opposed to lust.
true. But then, Francesca, no, Nemi. That's Nemi, right?
Can you just explain the second question a bit more? I'm confused.
Yeah.
So is it like our personal selves?
Yeah, your personal self. So when you're in a relationship, how important do you want the different things to be, and how do you think they should be connected in a well-functioning relationship?
Right, okay. Yeah.
And Dominic, I think the fact that you're actually questioning that's a very important part of it, because I do think that our society confuses these terms.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you there. I think there can be a lot of confusion around all of these terms, really, as far as the subject matter goes.
So I'm going to start with you while everybody else can still think about it. I'm going to start with you. So what do you think? How do you think people understand the difference between lust and love, and how do you understand it?
So if for people you're intending a sort of mainstream culture, or what's portrayed to be the mainstream thought, philosophy, or kind of general way of thinking, then yeah, I would say people maybe often associate love with sexual desire. Does that make sense?
Yep. Sure.
So yeah, which can be corrupt, if you like. Would that make sense?
Yep. I'm gonna go through the second question later. Colm, what's your view on how society now deals with lust and love?
Nowadays, I'm not sure most people understand the difference. If it's like people in my generation, if they get into a relationship, at some point there becomes like an expectation of like physical as well as emotional connections, regardless of where you are in that relationship, and like how well suited you actually are to each other, and how that impacts your relationship as well. Because like, a physical attraction is very important in a relationship. It needs to be there, but all too often people confuse it for the reason like of the relationship. And they think that, well, if you're not acting on that, then what's the point? I think forgetting that, yes, it's there and it's good that it's there, but it's also, and it's a very powerful thing, but then that also makes it a very dangerous thing. And if you don't treat it with respect and you don't treat it with care, then you're going to end up hurt. So is the person you're in a relationship with, and so could quite a lot of other people as well.
Okay, thank you. Masiri?
I was going to say let me not say we live, or rather I live in a society whereby people can say, show me that you love me by sleeping with me. And I know that sexual attraction is quite important, but it's not the only fundamental thing in terms of love. That is why we see people who are interable in a relationship that is full of so much love, but so little physical action there. But because they truly love each other, they're able to stay together. So I feel people don't see the difference. People assume that physical attraction and physical action is equivalent to love, which is not the case. Because if there's physical attraction and physical action without respect, without kindness, without compassion, then it is not love.
Yeah. Thank you. Francesca and Nemi?
I think people think that love and lust is the same, but they also do know that the difference between it. I think nowadays everyone's just being told to have self-fulfillment, so sleep with as many people as you can, lose your virginity young, and they just taught to objectify people, so then the lines become all blurred and people forget what the difference is.
Okay.
Okay. I think personally there is a difference between love and lust, and I think for us girls, maybe not, but a lot of girls I've spoken to, they can see the line between love and lust. Like, say, if you see a guy walking in the street, and you'll think, oh, he's an attractive guy, but you'll only see the attractiveness for having sex with him. But when you and a guy have the same values, then you tend to go to love first and then lust after, because you're on the same ground. You're not like one's up here and then one's down here. Yeah.
Marta, thank you.
I think nowadays, especially, I might be wrong, but who knows? I think young people misunderstand lust with love, and I think that the problem is that people don't like to take extra responsibilities, like being in a relationship. Being in a relationship, it's a very important responsibility, but instead of becoming to be together with somebody, people just prefer to go out on a weekend and have a one night stand, and I think that people don't realize that in this way they are actually trying to fill the void, because they need affection, they need love, and they think that, oh, for one night, if I'm gonna have sex with that attractive woman or man, I'll be fine, but it's just for 30 minutes, and then I think the void comes back, and people don't realize that.
Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to add something. I mean, we are driven by hormones. That's just a fact. And I think that in the past, our society put barriers in front of the hormones. So because there were like certain societal rules, you couldn't just go out and have sex with anybody. Like when you were attracted to a person, like hormonally attractive, you couldn't just go for it. And it took quite a long time. And I think maybe that calmed down the hormones a little bit. And also your parents sometimes had to agree if that was a good partner for you. And also you had to be aware that, oh, what if I get pregnant and stuff like that? So I think in the past you had to think more about your sexual choices or decisions, which gave you time to calm down the hormones and make bad decisions. And I think nowadays you can just do whatever you want to, and these barriers, the brakes are not in place anymore. What do you guys think about that? Resonate?
I think that's true.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, definitely. In the past, there used to be very real consequences, not just as a result of, say, biology, but also within society, of kind of taking it easy and not thinking about a relationship before just rushing into it. Whereas nowadays, there's no consequence in any sense. If you really wanted to, you can avoid, pretty much any negative result that might occur from any mistake you make in a relationship, more or less, especially if it's early on, or if it's a one night stand, or if it's not got any length or depth to it, then it has no consequence. It has no result. You're not going to kind of be forced one day to stop and think, oh wait, was that a good idea? No, especially not. And if you are, that's going to be so far down the line, it's not in your head.
Now, moving on to the second half of the question, how do you want intimacy, sexual connection, and love to be connected in your relationship? How important it is? Somebody has sound in the background.
So yeah, it's Jacek, sorry. I'll be right back.
I'm just gonna mute her real quick. So yeah, how do you feel about it in your personal life? And do you think that the importance of sexuality should stay the same in your relationship? Or is it okay to start on a high and then it declines? Or yeah, what do you hope in your relationship in the future? Nimi, Francesca, I'm going to start with you guys.
I don't know. I think intimacy in a relationship is good. However, I think if you go into a relationship and have sex straight away, I don't think you're going to be able to decline it and then go reverse. I think love needs to start small and then big. And that kind of, if you do it that way, then you'll have foundations for a healthy relationship. But I definitely think that being intimate with your partner is important. However, I think you should really think about it first, because I think if you can not be intimate at the beginning of a relationship, then it shows that you're actually committed to them and that you love them truly, and not just because they're good at sex and things like that.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's very important. I think if I was in a relationship, lust and love should come together, because you want the person to want to have sex with you, but not just.
You guys kind of
turn
turn the camera around so it's like that way instead of that way.
Oh,
Who?
friend, yeah, you guys.
It's like cutting half you off.
There we go.
Hey,
Mm.
I don't know what to say.
Person, I don't know.
I
can't remember.
It's,
No, you
Okay. Colm.
Why are you asking me about relationships? I think a physical attraction is important in a relationship, and it should exist. But there's a difference. But just because that attraction is there, doesn't mean you're under an obligation to act on it. And if you are serious about a relationship, then you should be able to control it. You should be able to limit it, and because to acknowledge it's the presence of an inclination within you doesn't mean to say that it's good for you to act on it in the moment. And so yes, it should be there. It should be something that's present, but it should be something that you and whoever it is you're with is able to control, is able to limit, and can act upon when you decide to, and not before, ideally when you're married.
Okay.
But that's just me. Because it's something that once it starts is very difficult to stop. It's really only ever due to age that begins to decline.
Yeah.
And so you
Okay. So you would like to wait till your marriage, which I think is admirable. How would you build? Would you build up to that? So would you start with I assume hugging, kissing, and stuff like that? That would be okay. Sorry if that's too intimate. Say so.
That would be okay, but don't go further than that.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Dominic.
What's that? Sorry, I missed your question.
No problem. How do you want intimacy and love to be connected in your relationship?
Just ideally, however it's meant to be best. You know what I mean?
How important would you say is it for you in the relationship?
What kind of relationship?
Like a long-term relationship, like a proper relationship.
So you have relationships with your parents, you have relationships
No,
with your family.
Well, you should probably not have intimate relationships with your parents.
Yeah, but you really need to
in the Highlands,
specify
but
what kind of
even here it's frowned upon. Pardon?
You
Say again?
really you need to specify, because relationships can be a friend's relationship. At the end of the day, there's different kind of love as well. If you look back to like the Greek translation,
Well, we clarified in the beginning that we're talking about relationship love between like within a couple. We clarified.
yeah, but even there's different types of love.
Okay, yeah. Can you specify that?
So there's principally, I would say, philia, eros, and agape, if you've heard of that.
Sure.
So there's different kinds of love of friendship, love which is more romantic, and then love which is more you give some to me, I give some to you. I can't remember exactly right now off the top of my head, really, and I'm not prepared to like give you a thesis on it. So
No, that's fine. That's fine.
but
Would you say that all three parts of this love are important in a relationship?
well, that's what it is. Love is these parts. So you can go about doing one part, but you're not giving something that's fulfillment. So what's the point?
Yeah. Okay. Now, I think what I heard from many people in relationships is they struggle that after time in the beginning, they have a lot of sex and then it declines over time. And I think that ties into the hormonal thing. And I think it's good to start slow and then slowly like become more and more familiar with each other and just keep it on something that feels comfortable for everybody with no pressure. So that I think that's how I'm gonna try it.
Are you for traditional love, or what's your kind of idea?
You mean in regards to like no sex before marriage? Or
For example, or man and woman, man and man, woman and woman.
I came to the conclusion that I think that you need the opposite to find something that you are lacking. So I would say man and woman. And I would say that sexuality is not the most important part in that. It's the meeting of two sides that were meant for each other. And I think that sexuality, especially in regards to creating new life, is the highest form of that. The peak. It's the cherry on top of the ice cream, so to speak.
I wouldn't even say that. Just like, well, yeah. No, I get you totally. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe that physical attraction is quite important. Like, obviously, when you meet somebody, you see how they look. My aunt always says, we don't go around with scanners to see people's hearts. So the first thing that attracts you to somebody is how they look. It might be how they look, how they carry themselves, what kind of clothes they wear, but it's always how they look. But then for you to have a sustainable relationship with that person, it then goes to how they act, their hearts, their emotions, their feelings. So I feel physical attraction, yes, it's important. It gets you through the door, it gets you to talk to somebody. But beyond that is, who are they? What kind of person are they? Can you see yourself spending the rest of your life with them? Can you see yourself 10, 20 years from now? And I think that is what is lacking. Most of the time we just look at, oh, he's cute, and then that's it. But you should ask yourself, okay, he's cute, but does he have good manners? Can I bring him home to meet my family? Or is he just somebody who I can introduce to my friends only because they can understand that crazy? Or is he the kind of person that I can welcome home? So I think for me, it's important to have physical attraction. It's important, but it's not the fundamental thing, because you can have an ugly heart and look cute, and it won't work.
Yeah. That brings us to the next topic, external attraction, how do you actually meet somebody? So we're moving on to relationship. How can you meet a person for a relationship nowadays. Obviously, now it's because of COVID, it's even more difficult. But you have dating apps now, you have bars, pubs, clubs, you have university, maybe if you still go to university, job. But I think it is quite difficult nowadays to meet somebody who shares your values. So think about it for a moment and think these are good options to meet somebody. So I'm going to start with myself this time. I think Christian dating apps are amazing. So I tried a lot of other things. I'm very shy. I'm not outgoing. I can't go to bars and clubs and stuff like that. Even when I go to a club, I dance by myself and I close my eyes, and I'm very shy. I can't approach women, and I also don't want to, like, I think it gets harder and harder because now, like, even talking to a woman, they want to turn that into sexual harassment in London and places like that. It's like, how are you supposed to meet somebody if you can't talk to them? So I tried Tinder, and that was awful because you first have to establish what the other person wants, and you can't really have a real conversation, and you get frustrated very quickly because you match with a person, then you write something, and then they don't answer back, and your hope declines, and your investment gets less and less and less. I think especially as a man, because like you don't get a lot of matches as a man, I would say, and then you're like, oh, I got a match, and you write something and you put a lot of thought in it, and then you don't get a reply, and you're like, well, next time I will not put as much thought into it because I didn't get an answer this time. And then I used a Christian dating app, and I was like, okay, let's try that. I hope I'm Christian enough for that. And well, and the good thing is, on the other dating apps, it feels like men always have to do the first step. On a Christian dating app, it seems like women make the first step because they want to get married, I guess. Masedi, why are you laughing so much? I don't know why you're
I'm sorry.
and
That's why I don't like to be on video, because then I can laugh without nobody saying anything. Sorry.
So yeah, and the thing on the Christian dating app for me, the good thing was that from the first moment you knew that the other person also wants like a relationship, and that certain values are quite likely to be similar. So that worked for me. I'm gonna move on to Masedi. What works for you?
Well, the thing is that ever since I was around 19, maybe 20, I knew that I wanted to get married. So every opportunity that I had, be it school, be it work, be it even conferences that I attended, I thought, okay, maybe I could meet somebody there. But like you said, it's difficult to meet people, especially when you don't want the same things. You might want one thing and the other person doesn't want what you want. And honestly, as sad as this is to say, this country or this continent has zero to no men opportunities here. Like, it's either they are gay, they're married, or they're just way old or way old or way stupid. And
when you say way old, what do you mean? Like 43?
Philip's age.
No. Okay, way old. For me, way old, you need to be at least 55 and plus. For me, that is way, way old. You should be old enough for me to see you like my dad. Like if I see you as my dad, then that's a deal breaker. So for me, what worked for me, similar to what you said, I love writing. So online dating allows me to express myself, say a bunch of things, and also because nobody knows you, nobody sees your face, you ghost me, it's fine. I move on to the next person. And I feel in the world that we live in, it's a global village. You know, you can meet anybody from anywhere around the world as long as you put yourself out there and also in the right spaces. Because I have probably tried over 20 different dating sites. And the problem was that I was either on the wrong one because I had one person got lucky there, but then it doesn't have the same values that I have. So I had to really look at, okay, what is more important to me? It's family, it's getting married, those things. So I had to really define that. And I think, well, we'll see. Only time will tell.
We're just gonna wait for
So,
Okay, sorry. Somebody just called me. Liam, you go next.
Hi, on the subject of dating apps, I'd have to.
No, not just dating apps, just in general.
I've forgotten the original question, actually. Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Where do you think you can find a partner for life or for a
Oh,
relationship?
that's right, yeah. Well, it depends on your values. Even within Christian circles, you'll have varying degrees of values. So you need to just, I'd say it all depends on finding the right church. And from there you find the right social circles according to your level of conservatism or your level of how pro-family you are, or your level of how a household should be run, whatever. As I say, on the subject of dating apps, I'd be very against them myself, because you can leave yourself vulnerable on these dating websites, especially women. If you give the slightest hint that you're desperate, the wrong person or the wrong guy could get a whiff of that and think, right, I'm really going in here for what I want, which isn't maybe necessarily what's right or what's the correct way to treat someone, and you can get used that way. Yeah.
Cool. Marta?
You know, it would be nice to see more people start dating because they met on a yoga class or a cooking class, you know, library, for example. But because of social medias.
But for that, the guys that go to the yoga and to the cooking class would have to be straight, right? Sorry, stereotype.
And not have a Tinder account.
And, you know, I think the issue with technology, on one side, it's very helpful, but on the other side, all this social media thing, I think create more of a distance between people. And that's why being on Tinder, for example, is so frustrating, because people are behind the screen and they don't feel guilty about writing some unpleasant stuff or being just rude. And so, yeah, I think the social media thing create the fact that, yeah, would you like to say something? Sorry. We're way more separate now between people in general and sex as well as male and female. And yeah, I would like to see people remember the old way, the old-fashioned way to meet. I think to some extent people just got lazy, you know. It's just easier to text somebody via Tinder or Facebook, and not to get engaged that easily.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Dominic?
Totally agree with that.
Okay. Anything to add? Anything to add?
Not for just now.
Okay. Colin?
Well, the thing is, I know people who've met in various places and had good relationships. I know people who've met mainly at school or uni or work. I also know a couple of people who've met at, say, like community events or in the pub. I even know one person who got a successful relationship off a dating app, but that's just the one person. I've never known anyone to have a successful relationship that started in a nightclub. I think if you're trying to form a bond with somebody and you can't see them properly, you can't hear them, then you're probably onto a bit of a non-starter there, frankly. But yeah, I mean that.
Try telling
problem is,
some
of
of my
course,
friends that.
Liam, sorry, come again.
Try telling some of my friends that you won't find love in a nightclub.
Do you think they're looking for love there?
No.
Yes.
Which is really sad.
Not as their
especially-
first choice, but
Mm.
when they're in the club, they might just try and get to know a woman in the off chance that she might be the one, I suppose.
But see, the Christian app, it's a good example. I think the problem with Tinder, for example, is that it's too generic. With the Christian app, from the beginning, you have at least one thing in common with your potential partner, because both of you are Christian. That's why you're on that dating app. And you could think about it the same way about nightclubs, because somebody likes going out and enjoy dancing, and that will be something that you could potentially have in common with the other person. But the way people think about clubs, that like dancing clubs, it's a bit tricky. I mean,
I think there might be a difference between generic nightclubs or very specialized ones. For example, I used to go to metal and rock clubs, and I think a lot of couples met there because they had a specific love for that kind of music, which also said they were a specific kind of person. Same if you go, for example, to a salsa club, then you already have a certain interest.
yes.
But if you just go to like your generic, like date club, so to speak, I think the chances are much, much lower because they don't have a personality. I think if the place where you meet a person has a strong personality, then you're more likely to find people with a strong personality. But the more generic a place is, the more generic the people will be, maybe. Nimi and Francesca, your views.
I have many problems. I always end up falling for gay guys. I don't know it at the start, and then I become their best friend, and then they say, by the way, I'm gay. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I only end up attracting girls, which it might be to do with my hair, but I don't know. And then I go to social events, and all the guys are very strange, or they're just not my age. And I'm quite judgmental as well. So
Speaking of judgmental, I feel that people have spent a long time with certain things that they're looking for. The reality is that you need to spread your net a bit wider to get the right people. If you are fixated, I know for sure that there are certain things that you don't want to compromise. That is your belief and other things. But if you believe, I want him to be taller than me, he might not be taller than you. If you say, I want him to have this kind of job, he might not have that kind of job. There are certain things that you ought to compromise, and it's hard. I know it. It took me a long time to really like, no, you're getting old. You need to now really think about dialing it down and have what am I trying to say? Compromise, because that way then you might stand a better chance. Because if I stick to my old brain, I don't think I would find anybody, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's your turn.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I agree with a lot of the things Mercedes said, because since the young age of like 13, I've been on the hunt for my husband. Still haven't found him, obviously. So whenever I go to Christian events, yes, I go for the social aspect and to meet other girls that I have a lot in common with as friends, but you also always go searching for a husband as well. You're like, oh, that guy's Christian, we have such and such values the same, but they always turn out a bit odd. And then I think sometimes you can kind of start to give up a little bit, and then you realize that you're changing what you want to actually find in a guy to try and suit suit the kind of guys you find out. Yeah, that's what I said. In society, and I think it can get quite hard, even when you go on Instagram and you find like a Christian boys' page, and you're like, oh, he's really good, but then you see how many Christian girls are following him and spamming the comments, and you're like, okay, never mind. So it does get a bit hard, but I think at the end of the day, like Mercedes said, you do need to try and step outside of your comfort zone a little bit, but still keep the values that you want to find in a husband at the same time.
I'm going to say something controversial now. I think a man has to become a man first. So I think I did a haircut for a young guy today. He was 18, and his girlfriend, she was also 18, and she pushed him into moving together, and they broke up because he was like, oh, I'm just not ready for that. And I was thinking, most guys at the age of 18 are just not ready yet, especially in our society nowadays. There is no pressure on men to actually become man and to become providers. And this might be very conservative and controversial, but I think that men have to be providers, or should be, just for self-respect as well. So yeah, maybe you have to wait a little bit longer to find men at an age where you're like, okay, they have their shit together and they have it figured out. It's very difficult to start a relationship when you're both still, or when everybody's still searching for their way. I hope that's not too hurtful for anybody here. Okay. Does anybody want to say something to end this, like how to meet a person for a relationship? Final thoughts and prayers on that.
Just to add to what you were saying, Philip. Yes, men need to learn to become men, and it probably is controversial to say that, because let's face it, saying 2 + 2 = 4 is controversial these days. However, that is true. Nonetheless, there is a real crisis of masculinity in the world, in the sense of we're missing men who are actually men who have their act together, who have their lives together, who are capable of looking after. If they were to have a family, would be capable of looking after it. I mean, I know women who have kind of like literally moved countries, trying to start up a life for themselves, because they take a look around at where they live and they realize there's like no one here that they could form a relationship with.
Yep.
Just for the simple fact that usually it's something along the lines of they're too immature, or they've got their head in the clouds, or they just don't have their lives together. They haven't proven that they can stand up to the rigors of life yet.
Yeah. I think if we expect to find a relationship, I think we have to take a hard look at ourselves, and we have to ask ourselves, would I want to have a relationship with myself if I was the partner that I'm looking for? And because there's always a lot of space for self-improvement, also the willingness to compromise on certain things. Yeah, maybe we can talk about that in another meeting. I'm gonna the next question, because we kind of answered that before. The question was, what are the pillars of a relationship? And I think we covered that in the pillars of love. I think there are some differences, but for the most part, I think we covered that. So I'm going to move on to the last topic, and that is marriage. And my question is, how does marriage change a relationship? So is marriage important? Why would you get married? Why would you not just stay in a relationship? So I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that and write it down if you want to. And I'm going to start with you, Dominic.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So marriage. I think if you want to get married, it could be a good thing. No?
How do you think, like, is it important for a relationship? Do you,
So if you are,
you want to get married if you find the right partner?
yeah, I mean, I think it's really quite a wide question.
Get stuck in then.
Sorry?
Get stuck in then. Give it.
I know,
Give
but
us
I
the
just don't know
good
where to
old
start.
orthodoxy.
I just don't know how to start formulating it, because I think there's so much that you could say. I wouldn't know where to start.
I'll give you a bit of time. I'll give you a bit time. I'm gonna move over to Liam.
Yeah, no, I don't need time. I don't need time, like.
You want to get married right now?
Good man. Go for it.
Let somebody else speak then, please.
Yeah, Dominic, didn't you know that this is actually like a dating show just now?
Speed dating.
So Liam, what do you think about marriage? How does it change a relationship?
Well, the good thing about marriage is it's harder for a guy to do a runner after you've been married, because traditionally it would have been impossible. That's the ideal, but I think these days you're going to find it impossible to get divorced, illegalized again. So I think the best thing is, so when you get married, it's like you can't, as I say, just do a runner. There's all these steps you have to go through, and there's more of a chance that one party could be convinced to stay when they're trying to leave. But certainly, I think when people don't get married and they try and like have kids outside marriage and all that, if that's someone's ideal, it could all come crashing down tomorrow.
So like a safety feature, like would you say like an external support system?
Yeah.
Give up as easily?
Say that again, sorry?
Like an external support structure that you don't give up as easily when times get rough.
Aye, and like if you're not married, you could just wake up tomorrow and your partner's gone. No note, no nothing. But with a marriage, there's accountability there. There's financial commitments there. There's other things as well.
Yeah.
That's perhaps more from a secular point of view. Obviously, from a religious point of view, it's you get even stronger arguments. But yeah.
Cool.
leaving to aside for one moment how our culture treats marriage, for me, well, I'd argue that it is essentially, marriage is important because you're making like clear and formal that you're committed to someone now for the rest of your lives. Rather, both of you are, and that is a very important thing to do because you're recognizing that, in a sense now, really kind of what we've not mentioned at all is that in a relationship, it's not all about you. And doubly so in the case of a marriage, because now you're thinking about looking to have a family, looking to have children, which is again a very important thing. And the reason that a marriage exists, the marriage as an idea exists, is so that one side or the other, I say one side, let's be honest, the dad, is so that he can't, do a bunk and disappear off into the ether, leaving his wife behind with the wains and the responsibility of looking after them.
Unfortunately, I have to tell you that 70% of divorces are filed by women, not by men. So,
And that's because
Yes,
men
they
are
are
too
these
effeminate,
days.
I would imagine.
That is true.
Take on the
Yeah.
responsibilities, most likely.
and look at abortions as well. So I
That's
think
true.
I think that both men and women have a really hard time nowadays to take responsibility because all responsibilities were taken away from them. So
And according to the statistic you're talking about, do you know what's the main cause for
Yes.
divorce?
Yes, dissatisfaction. Simple,
Uh,
not
mhm.
not being happy.
The polite way of saying effeminacy, isn't it? Effeminacy in the husband.
So sorry, Com,
Quite
I was
possible.
interrupting you.
No, that's again a good point. It just shows you how everything is. Our world has just turned so much upside down now that it's the women looking to get out of marriages rather than men. But again, it can. The problem is for me as well. No, it's not a problem. It's my outlook to marriage is different from most people because again, it's a sacramental thing as well. It's the relationship between. It's like you don't realize it, but there are three people in a marriage. There's the husband, the wife, and God, and then any children that might come after. And so when people kind of think of themselves as kind of having control of a relationship, yes, you are responsible for it. Yes, it's on you to keep it going. But that now means that you have a responsibility to make sure it lasts and that it doesn't end, which these days I get the feeling that a lot of relationships which fall apart happen not because people actively look to break up their relationships, but rather just because they just let them fall apart. I think the main cause of divorce these days is now just dissatisfaction. It's not something that's happened or that's been done. It's just it seems to be that there's something not happening rather than something which is happening.
I think the issue here is freedom. Like, who doesn't want to be free? But compared to a century ago, people now have way more freedom, even about marriages. And I think that now people just give up so easily. Like, if there's something wrong in the relationship, people find easier just to break up instead of working hard and try to make this relationship work.
I think that that's something that our society struggles under anyways. Too much freedom, no boundaries anymore. And if you're in a marriage and you can just get a divorce because you're dissatisfied and there's so much yummy stuff lying around you, you're like, oh, we're going through a rough patch. We're just going to break it up, especially if it's not a holy bond anymore. And I think that's like the holiness of marriage. I think that's a very important part. Masidi, what are your thoughts?
There are so many things I dislike about my culture, and there's one thing that I really appreciate about it. When you get married, you bring two families together, the groom's and the bride's family together, to come sit together and say, you know what, we want to get married. So even here, when I want to get a divorce, I still need to call my husband's family to say, you know what, your son no longer makes me happy, then your family has to call my family to set up a meeting. So it's not as easy to get a divorce because there are other people who actually depend on that marriage working. Even the law, I can't just up and say I want to get a divorce. The law, the court needs to know that we have tried to intervene, or the family has tried to intervene. So I feel that's one of the things that I appreciate most about my culture, that it's not easy to walk away from it. And the thing is that we have made getting a divorce so easy and so lightly, and that it never mattered. For me, what differentiates between a relationship and a marriage is that that is a commitment. That's forever. It's until death do us part. It's not until anything else do us part. It's not until an argument do us part. So I feel most people are not committing to forever. They're committed to how things are. So if you change, if you lose your job, if kids become annoying, if you don't have money, then I can go because I was committing to that situation that I was comfortable with. So I feel that has to change.
Thank you. Nemi, Francesca?
Are you speaking?
I'm sorry, but he's crying horribly.
Sorry. Oh, isn't me? Okay. I personally think marriage is very important, and I think that marriages break up because people are scared of the long-term commitment. And after you kind of get married, when you get married, you agree to share. The woman has to share her money with the man, and the man has to share the money with the woman. And then after a while, some women will be like, oh, but where's my freedom I had before? I can't now go out with my girlfriends whenever I want because I have to check with my husband or make sure that there's someone looking after the children, and that can come with its own problems. So I think that's why a lot of people don't want to get married, because when you're just in a relationship with a person without the ring on it, as I like to say, then you have the freedom of, if you find another guy, to just go off and be with him and jump around kind of thing.
Unfortunately, I think that commitment is kind of out of fashion currently.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I'm not saying that commitment's wrong, but it's definitely out of fashion. Yeah.
I think it's all about doing what makes you happy. So it's like, and I think many things don't make humans happy. So that's why many of these relationships and marriages don't work. And I think it's a marriage is when you're ready to commit and take up all the responsibility and grow with a person. But most people want to grow alone, have everything their way, but they don't want to make sure everyone else around them also is good.
You mentioned happiness there. I think that we misunderstand happiness and fulfillment nowadays. And I think happiness is something very fleeting, but fulfillment is something very deep. And I can't think of anything more fulfilling than like having a functioning relationship and being a parent and having children. But is that like the happiest thing? I'm pretty sure it isn't, because like you get like weeks without sleep, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to be worried all the time if your family is going to be okay and all of that. So I don't think that it's a path to fleeting happiness, but I think it's a path to fulfillment. And the thing about God being part of the marriage, I was always like, I always had a connection to God, always. Like I was born with it, I would say. But letting God hold me accountable, I think that's a more recent thing. In the past, I was more like, no, I can do whatever I want to, as long as I don't hurt other people. It's okay if I hurt myself. And I think that actually allowing God to step in and making promises towards God and telling God, could you help me with like stopping this bad habit and this bad habit, and could you look over my relationships and make sure that I'm doing the right thing? That really helped me. I think if you constantly hold yourself accountable, it's very hard because you always cannot just escape through the back door and say, oh, I'm not happy with that anymore. I'm getting out of the contract. But if there is a bigger contract, if somebody else can hold you accountable, that actually makes it easier for you. What do you guys think about that? Like external account for your relationship.
Fear of God's justice. I'm a big fan of that.
Colm, I'm pretty sure you have some thoughts about that.
I think it is important, I think, to have something that you are accountable to throughout your life. Because if you are the person who defines your own morality, then it's very easy for you to get into a position where you can do no wrong. And you can justify everything that you do. So, and God's very good external judge, if you will, because he can't change. So if he says it's wrong, and well, you just have to admit that. And that's something that I think a lot of people in the world are lacking. It's that you can say, it's like, yeah, but I can do this, I could do that. You can see there's a lot of people, I don't know if this is just an English language thing, but if you speak for long enough and you use enough fancy sounding words, you can essentially turn yes into no and no into yes.
It's universal.
Okay, there you go. But with God, you can't do that. No, it's like if you say yes, you mean yes. If you say no, you mean no.
I would disagree with you there, because I think that a lot of faith communities do like change definition and stretch and like introduce gay marriage, for example, and find examples why they say it's okay. And I don't want to go into that topic. But everybody can stretch words till they don't mean what they mean anymore.
That is true. Yes, very
And
true.
that's why their pews are now empty.
I agree with that.
Secularized.
Yeah.
Because there are no clear, like, you don't know what it stands for anymore.
No leadership.
Yeah.
People don't like taking the blame. I think they always want to have someone to blame for it, but sometimes it's just your fault. Just don't want to.
Yeah. I think it's hard to take blame, but I think it's very easy to take the blame if you love yourself. And I think if you know that, if you truly love yourself, but know that you're flawed, it's very easy to say, excuse my language, I fucked up. But that doesn't mean I don't deserve love and stuff like that. It just means that next time I shouldn't fuck up. I shouldn't make the same mistakes. And I think it's really hard to accept that you made a mistake when you question yourself too much. If you have low self-esteem and stuff like that, every time you question yourself, it hurts. But if you have a healthy self-esteem, then you can say, oh, that was really bad. I did something really, really bad here, and I have to hold myself accountable, but that doesn't mean that I deserve any less love from myself and from others. And then, well, in that case, God. Okay, I think we're gonna slowly bring this to an end, but I would one quick last question, because I picked certain things up. I find that the higher your standards are, the higher your morals are, it feels like the harder it gets to actually find a partner nowadays. And I think that's something, and I don't want to speak for all of you, but I do think it's something that we all struggle with, isn't it? Because our pool from people to choose from gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's why I was asking, where can we actually find partners? But even though it gets harder and harder to find somebody, I think if you actually find somebody, I think the chances are higher that you'll make it. That because you find this one pearl, that one person where you're like, yeah, that person and me, we have similar values. What do you guys think? Are you still hopeful? Well, Marta, you've got somebody.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I was actually really lucky. Sometimes I cannot believe that I met my partner on Tinder. I really want, yeah, seriously, I was the same day when Jacek contacted me, I was ready to cancel my account because I just couldn't stand all that weird people getting in touch with me. Yeah, so I feel really lucky that I actually met him.
Don't tell me that Jacek is not weird.
Well, yeah, I think that's a topic that we can discuss on another meeting. We could spend the whole meeting talking about that.
but is it fair to say that, I mean, I wouldn't say, and I don't want to go too personal, but you are not in all areas like a perfect match. You have to figure things out, and I think that's very beautiful that you found each other on an unlikely platform, and then through again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but through a lot of hardship, you found each other, I would say, and because you didn't have the easiest time because of external stuff, and I think that brought you closer to you, didn't it?
Well, definitely all the things that happen during this past few years, like my illness, Jacek's mom passed away. We had very difficult time, and even if in some way I am grateful for all of that, because that, I think that proved me, and I can ask also Jacek's opinion, but I think all this situation showed us that we can rely on each other, that we are both mature, and that we can trust each other, and that this is a real relationship. It's not just holding hands, giving kisses. That's it. The relationship is way more than that, and that's why I mentioned in the beginning the ugly truth is very important here, because being in a relationship, it's not always easy, and you need to work hard on it every single day. And the fact that we had some difficult time for a while, to me it was just the proof that I'm with the right person. This is who I want to be with.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I think if you had a hard time finding somebody, you are less likely to give up easily. And for me, I feel I need to find out, or I need to experience a dark situation with you for me to know whether I can stay or not. People always find it weird that I say, if I can find your darkest, deepest secret, or if I can find something that people would think is off about you, then I can know I can trust you. Because like you said, Martha, it won't be sweet all throughout. So if you know that this person has been through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and when they were able to overcome it, you know that you can trust them if you ever find yourself in a similar situation. So yeah, I think the harder it is to find somebody, you won't give up that easily. Secondly, you need to go through some deep, dark situations for you to say, okay, no, I can trust this person, because life is not fair. Honestly, life is not fair. Life is not always the same. I think COVID really showed us that life is not fair. People lost their jobs, people lost so many things happened, and you couldn't do anything about it. So I feel if you experience those hardships, you won't give up easily. And also it depends on how you handle hardships. If when things are tough, I insult you, I disrespect you, that tells you that I'm not the right person for you. If within hard situations I say, we're going to get through this together, then it can also show you that, oh, there is a future with that person, because she's able to really face difficult situations and still remain principled, respectful, and the person that I liked in the beginning.
Thank you. I'm gonna just ask Liam, Colm, Francesca, and Naomi for their final verdict. Just a last sentence, and then we're gonna bring this to Liam.
What was the question again?
Just
Yeah.
final words for the conversation, not related to a question. Maybe tell us.
Final thoughts, I would just say women remain mysterious and make him work for you. Don't give it away too easy.
Colm?
Relationships are difficult, and they should be. If you're not in a relationship that challenges you, then you're doing something wrong. That said, not everyone is cut out to be in a relationship. There are some people I've met who, to be perfectly honest with you, should never, ever, 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 ever get married. But that doesn't mean that they are not going to live a good life or an unfulfilled life or a life that was not worth living. So, yeah, kind of, it's not easy. It might not be for you, but the chances are that it is. So, and at the same time, keep an open mind. You never know, like, where or when you might finally get things going.
Naomi and Francesca?
First, go to therapy if you have many issues before you go into a relationship. And second, go to a park and you'll probably meet someone there. Don't stalk them, but just they'll come to you. Observe. Yeah.
Last word in regards to what Colm said. Yeah, I do think there are certain people that probably shouldn't get married or shouldn't be in a relationship. But, and here's the big but, I think that we can change ourselves a lot. I mean, nowadays, people change from male to female and female to male, or at least they believe they do. We can change a lot. And I think we can put ourselves into a position where we become somebody who can be a partner. I had friends, like 2 friends of mine, both women, and all 3 of us, we were single, and I changed my behavior. I started drinking beer, for example. I know that sounds super silly, but I faked being a manlier man, and they thought it was really silly. And I said, I want to be the man that I think a woman would find attractive or would like. And I know that sounds very cosmetic, but it wasn't the only thing. I said, I've been single for almost all my life, and I did everything. I cleaned the house, I cooked, I didn't need a partner because I was doing everything myself, and that was the case for these 2 women. And I said, if you don't need a partner, why are you going to find a partner? You have to make place for a partner in your life. You have to become the person who deserves a partner and who needs a partner in some ways. And I think that helped me. The 2 women are still single. They haven't done their work yet. But they're the typical version of like strong, independent woman, and they don't want to compromise. And I really do think it puts them into a difficult situation, because why would a man want to approach them if they don't show that they're open? Last word. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope maybe you actually take something out of the conversation and think about certain aspects. And I'm gonna do another one next week, same time, same place. And if you have ideas for topics that you would like to talk to, just send me a message in our WhatsApp group, okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you guys.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, folks.
Bye.
Bye.